Elidor by Garner. 11th, The Last Spadeful. What was that you were chunnering about last night, Roland, before Dad told you to shut up? I know what's causing all this, said Roland. It's the treasures. Mrs. Watson was in bed suffering from a headache. She had put cotton wool in her ears to keep out the noise of the washing machine. Mr. Watson was having trouble over finding an electrician. Either the numbers were engaged, or he became involved in long arguments. I don't know how they're doing it, said Roland, but they are. Maelbron said they'd still give light in Elidor even when they're here, so they must be generating something. Generators, said David. Yes, they could. Roland, you've hit it. If Maelbron said that, the treasures must be giving off energy. And if it's generated over a wide enough range of frequencies, it'll spoil TV and radio reception, and it'll turn electric motors. Does that mean that as long as I'm looking after a stone, I'll not be able to use my transistor, said Nicholas. It depends what the range is, said David, but probably you won't. It fits what happened when I went to collect them, said Roland. The GPO van and all the static. The van makes sense, said David, but generators don't generate static electricity. And if the treasures are generators... There's a lot of if in this, said Nicholas. But we'll have to do something quickly, said Roland. We can't hide the treasures for long. They'll be found and taken away from us. There'll be another van looking for them this morning, I bet, unless we can stop the interference they're causing. The only thing to do is to try to screen them, said David. If we put them in a metal box and bury them, it should block out most of the interference, if the energy is anything like electricity, and it must be even in Elidor. That's what I said we should do at the start, said Nicholas. Dig a hole and bury 'em. Well, it's a bit thick if I can't listen to the radio, and anyway, we look so daft carting those things round, you and Roland playing soldiers with bits of iron and wood, and Helen at a doll's tea party and me. Well, what am I doing looking after a lump of stone as if it was the crown jewels? But Maelbron trusted us to look after them, said Roland. We can't let him down, and Elidor... You give me the pip sometimes, said Nicholas. You really do, all right. I was as excited as you when it happened. But what is it once you've got used to the idea? Is it any better than our world? It's all mud and dust and rock. It's dead, finished. Maelbron said so, and you should think about him a bit more too. Did he care how we made out as long as he found the treasures? He sent us trotting off into that mound, one after the other. But he didn't go himself. What right has he to expect us to spend the rest of our lives like broody hens? But you saw him, said Roland. How can you forget him if you've seen him? Nicholas shrugged his shoulders. Oh, well, he said. Well, I didn't say anything was wrong with him. He was just self-centered. Do stop arguing, said Helen. Honest, Roland, if David's right, then what Nick wants to do is best, even if you don't like why he's doing it. Now, what's all this noise? Said Mr. Watson. The washing machine had covered his approach. You know your mother's got a bad head. Sorry, Dad, said David. Any luck? It's very strange, said Mr. Watson, but every single electrician says he's been having calls all night, and no one can promise to come before this afternoon. So it wasn't just us, said David. It's intolerable, said Mr. Watson. Your poor mother didn't sleep a wink. I'm going round to the electricity office now to insist that they do something immediately. It can't go on. Can we dig in the garden, please? Said Helen. Yes, anything you like, said Mr. Watson. As long as you don't disturb your mother. She's dropped off. We'll have to bury the treasures, said David as soon as their father had gone. If they've been causing all this trouble, the electricity people of the post office will find them. It's the only way, Roland. David and I'll take first go at the digging, said Nicholas. We'll have to make it deep. Dad won't think much of it if he comes back before we're finished. Helen and Roland went upstairs and brought down 4 polythene bags to hold the treasures. It was hard to squash all the air out of the bags so that they would take up as little space as possible. Helen fastened the necks with rubber bands and covered this seal with a lashing of twine. Roland found an old dustbin among the rubbish that had been cleared out of the cottage and was waiting to be removed from the bottom of the garden. The treasures looked no different: a stone, a piece of railing, 2 lathes, and a cup. Roland put them into the dustbin and tied the lid down with the length of flex from David's radio spares. When Helen and Roland climbed into the hole, it was up to their chests. The sides were mottled layers of earth, darkest on the top, growing lighter and sandier toward the bottom, and veined brown with dead roots. Shreds of pottery winked blue and white in the soil. "Have you noticed?" said Helen. "Whenever you dig, there's always millions of broken plates. It's the same at the other house. People must have been throwing them away for years." They were head-deep in almost pure sand, and they could barely lift the spade loads to clear the pile at the edge of the hole. "You'll do that," said David. "It's the best we can manage in the time. Give us your hand and I'll pull you out." "Right," said Helen. "Last spadeful coming up." "Oh!" She had drove the spade into the sand and hit something which cracked. Helen knelt and picked up several fragments of earthenware. "Oh, I think it's a whole jug," she said, "and I've smashed it. Look, Roland, isn't it lovely?" She wiped a piece with her hand. It was a creamy brown color, with a blue tinge of lead in the glaze, and there were the head and forelegs of a unicorn lined in dark red. "Gosh, it must be centuries old," said Roland. "I'm going to mend it," said Helen. "Oh, what a pity. If only I hadn't broken it. I'd give anything not to have broken it." "We'll be copped if you don't hurry up," said Nicholas. Helen and Roland were pulled out of the hole, and the dustbin was lowered in. They kicked and shoveled the earth back and stamped it down. "There," said Nicholas. When they went into the kitchen to clean their hands, the washing machine had stopped. And that's the end of chapter 11.